Sellers failed to advance last week with buyers defending local daily demand and closing over the POC of the all-time high structure. So can sellers get back on defense by preventing acceptance under the key point of control at the all-time high structure, or are buyers ready for new highs? My name is Lamont. I've been a full-time trader for 8 years now, part of the ChartGuys team for more than half of that, where I head up our futures room and our swing report. In this video, we'll go over all that and more. So let's get into it here. All right. So let's see. All right. So for SPY here, like we were saying last week, the key for the buyers this week, or I guess what we were saying 2 weeks ago, the key for the buyers last week was to hold over this guy, right? What they needed to do was just hold over the point of control, 623.52. That's the point of control of this local area of demand here. And as long as you're finding acceptance over this area of demand, then there's really no problems, right? Because in order for these sellers to really press the advance, they need to not just create some overhead supply as they did over here. They also need to take out this area of demand. Otherwise, holding a back test of a demand zone and then just continuing to move higher, really there's no problem right now for these buyers. So it was the most notable selling that we have seen in quite some time, but the sellers just failed to capitalize on it. So additionally, like I was saying, we're now over 635.39, which is the point of control of the all-time high structure over here. The sellers wanted to hold under this point of control, continue to affirm it as supply. That would put them on defense now going forward, right? If these buyers next week can continue to just hold over 635.39, which honestly would be pretty surprising unless we continue to press higher, like right off the jump next week. Because there's not really that much space to defend this level here. But if they can do that next week, so let's say you get a situation where you retrace, don't come back down to the daily no change level, right? The daily no change level is the breakout point of this local area of daily demand. Don't come back down there, get back over the point of control. That would pretty much be the best, the point of control of this supply. I mean, that would pretty much be the best case scenario for these buyers next week. At this point now, there's a good amount of space for a daily higher low over 619.29. And recall, we were looking for just another weekly higher low to potentially be set here. And as of right now, the buyers are positioned well to set this higher low at 619.29 if they can break over 637.65 next week. I think we did a trade zone, right, off of this guy. All right. So if you, if you use this trade zone, that's 3 fills. And at this point now, coming so close to target before the end of the week, personally, I would probably take some risk off here because this was a 3-hour trade. So even if you decided to just take some off at the close here, you're already looking at a 2.35 R trade, and then you can hold the rest to see if we can see follow through up to the yearly R1 or potentially even more. And that's really it. That's how I would manage this anyway. If you use this trade zone shared last week, no, 2 weeks ago. So again, this is kind of the value of VP, or one of the values of VP, is that you kind of can already know where you're going to take trade, right? You know that, okay, well, as long as these buyers are able to defend demand zones, then they're fine. And so where is there good value on these trades? It's to just use these demand zones as your trade zone, right? Just like over here on the way up, right? Just like over here, back test this high. Right, this is good location, backtesting this demand zone. This is good location for buys. Backtesting this demand zone, good location for buys. You never even get that test here for these buyers, for these sellers, I mean. Breakout over here. This is a good demand zone to be making your plays off of for this low, for this low, for this low, etc. So that's the same idea, right? It really need not be any more complicated than that when you're dealing with like a, if you want to do like a trend following system based off of pure price action, that's really all that one needs to get that done. So that's really it. Moving on to the Qs here. So for the Qs, it's a pretty similar situation, right? So before I move on, just recall, right? The sellers needed to get back under here to really make a statement, and they opened up above the value area high of the structure. So they never even came close to testing this point of control. This was very, very weak selling throughout last week. And additionally, when you look at these days, it might look like, oh, okay, the sellers actually put up quite a bit of a fight. But when you pull up the session to session perspective, it really wasn't that meaningful. The selling, at least, wasn't terribly meaningful, particularly Tuesday's selling, not terribly meaningful to not even negate this move here. trade sideways, and then the next day just continue the advance. This was actually quite notable, right? For these sellers to take out this area of demand over here on Thursday, but then get caught up here. Again, not really that meaningful. It was even less meaningful on the NQ. I'll show you that in a second here. But let's just get back to the daily. So on the daily time frame for the NQ, you are flirting with another break. And so technically we did break to a new all-time high by just a penny here, by just like a dime or so, I should say. And didn't see follow through. But, you know, at the same time, the sellers didn't really show up at all on Friday session, I should say. And so next week, what do we care about? We care primarily about 566.06 as our downside reference. As long as these sellers can't get back under 566.06, well, then they don't negate this breakout, right? This breakout and this breakout being affirmed as long as holding over 566.06. And I'm thinking the next objective, if we make new highs here, is the monthly R2. The NQ has this overnight high over here. This high was made in the overnight session. Major highs and lows are typically not made in the overnight session, so I would not consider this to be a secure high. The reason being there's just not when everybody's playing, right? The auctions should end at the highs and the lows with there just being nobody else willing to participate, and you can't really get a good assessment of, you know, the total participants that are willing to participate here, the total operators that are willing to participate here during the overnight session, right? Because most people are not trading at that point. So the NQ was much more clear, right, regarding the Thursday selling not really being terribly meaningful, because this is essentially the consolidation of this move, right? And so despite the fact that the buyers kind of fumbled this open here, rolled back down all the way under the open and then filled the gap, at the same time, the sellers, think about what kind of damage these sellers created, right? They couldn't even take out the structure of this guy, which is just the consolidation of this move higher. So at the end of the day, the end of the day rally was obviously quite notable. Continued on into Friday's session, and then we just balanced over the opening range of Thursday's session. So, you know, it's very helpful, because if you see a session like this with a lot of selling, or even a session like this with a lot of selling, it can feel like sellers are doing something meaningful, right? But you just call things exactly for what they are, right? What kind of damage have the sellers created here? Yes, they took out these two demand zones with this selling, but they couldn't negate this breakout even, right? And so really all of this was just balancing over this session. So there really was not really any problems here, right? Despite the fact that value moved lower, it was overlapping to lower, etc., right? All of this was really just continuation of this move up, you know what I mean? And then this day, you know, again, we've already covered that. So that's pretty much it. I think we did a trade zone here too, right? We did. So again, you know, couple fills, already got to the target. So at this point now, if you use this QQQ trade zone, you should be out the majority of this trade and then just be holding on to a runner with your stop under this low. And now what you want to see from a management perspective is you just want to see something like this, right? Trade sideways without taking out this low, then break out, then walk the stop up to here and trail that stop up based on these areas of demand. Assuming these buyers can create more areas of demand, just like if you were to have come off the low, you know, making a buy off the low here, where's your stop? You leave it right off that low until you break out here. Then you can walk it up to here, you balance and break out. Then you walk the stop up to here, you balance and break out. Then you walk the stop up to here, you balance and then break out. Then you, etc. Right? So that's the idea. If you use this trade zone, then, you know, I would manage it like that going forward. And if you're interested in getting trade zones like this for individual tickers every week to send to your inbox, an update from me, an update from Dan, live updates for any trades that we do take, then check out this room report. Link is in the description below. It's you know, that's this kind of setup or whatever is pretty much, that's really all that, you know, the advisory is based on, except I also am considerate of, like, you know, fundamental developments. I'm most active in names that I think are promising for the future. But anyway, moving on to the rut here. So for the rut, this was quite notable, right? Recall what happened on this Friday. So this was from 2 Fridays prior. And yes, it was a very notable rejection from this structure's point of control. That's this guy over here. This is the key supply that these buyers are struggling with right now. Rejecting from the point of control is the sellers playing very notable defense. However, all they did was drop and pop at the low of the range. And now you're back over the value area low of this big old structure here. And you're back over 216.91. So essentially, we're back to expecting this kind of balance. Even if we were to balance over 213.97 and under 226, while that would not be ideal because we would not be affirming this structure as demand, it would still be notable that the sellers can't get us back under this structure and we'd be chipping away at the supply that is in here. So a little bit of relative weakness here. Daily higher low trying to be established at 218.51 and need a break of 221.57 for us to be confident in this daily higher low being set next week. Again, if you use this trade zone, very reasonable to have taken an exit over here at the daily no change level, and I would just leave my stop under the low for anything else, and you're looking for the same thing. You want to see balance and breakout before walking a stop up. All right, moving on then to the Dow. Whoops. All right, so for the Dow, also bounced, but again, some relative weakness here. So we're still struggling, the buyers, I should say, are still struggling under this guy. This is not the all-time high supply. The all-time high supply is over here. So this is kind of the mini boss, right? This is the big boss, even though it's smaller, kind of like, kind of like those like old, like the whole trope of like the small boss, like in cartoons. You know what I'm talking about? Man, what is that? What is that? Like Looney Tunes? Little gangster guy with a big hat. Something like Minzy or something, whatever. Anyway, like Joe Pesci, I guess. He's the big boss. Anyway, so very notable point of control rejection over here. Space for a daily higher low. Trying to set it here at 437.98. Buyers need to break over 442.88 next week to have confidence in this higher low at 437.98 being set. And it's really still about 444.89 next week, right? They need acceptance over 444.89 to flip this guy as demand. Flipping this guy in demand keeps these buyers positioned well for a go at the all-time high structure. Very notable failure here, right? So this lower low could not get back down to 432.06. So this breakout continues to be affirmed as long as no acceptance under 432.06. But at the same time, this was good defense from these sellers, excuse me. I think we did a trade zone as well. It's like a bigger one, looking for a yearly R1. Not really any room for profit taking here, so I would just, hold fast here and just stick to the game plan if you initiated that in the Dow. Moving on to the dollar. You can't love this as a dollar seller, right? Particularly if you use this trade zone, the price is still moving lower, right? But at the same time, you can't love the fact that these lower lows are being met with buying. That being said, it can get choppy in this mess over here, and I already suggested, you take some profits on any initiations in here and throw your stop over the high. So I would just stick with that, right? So at this point now you should have chopped it up a little bit, throw your stop over here, and you're still trying to get back down here. I don't hate this as a buy either. That's why I have it set up like this, because it's very reasonable to be looking for balance under this guy and over this guy. I would not be surprised if the dollar spends a good amount of time balancing, as that's just kind of what it does. Has a propensity to be choppy for prolonged periods of time. Space for a daily lower high. Anything under 98.890 is going to be good for 1. And that's it. Moving on to gold here. So for gold, so it's a breakout to new all-time high, but you didn't really see that much acceptance. That being said, the sellers really haven't pressed the issue at all either yet. So I got these 3 marked up because this is really what we should be looking at going forward to assess the strength of this breakout. The best case scenario would be for these buyers to get back over, or to hold rather, over the development value area high. That's going to let us know that the buyers are still moving value higher relative to all of this local balance over here. And if they can hold over the development point of control, then they're positioned well to continue to move value higher. But I don't know that I would care to play the Deepak here. I think if this is going to be a look above and fail, then the seller should try to test the lows of the range. So I would get back to looking for deval plays personally, right? Like either be, this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive, but I would be more inclined to play at the deval looking for further balance or down here. Or if you hold the Deepak, I don't love playing the Deepak here, right? After a look above and fail, I would rather we see something like this, move down, get a really strong reaction off the Deepak, make space for a higher low, then play out the Diva and look for a pass back over play, trying to get back to the highs of the, at least the like somewhere like under this local high. That's how I would handle it at least. The most patient trader, you're still just waiting for this trade zone. There's no guarantees. You never know if this breakout's going to be real. If this is going to be a look above and fail, that would increase the probability that you do get a setup back at this trade zone over here. All right. NVDA just grinding higher over here as well. Space for a daily higher low. Anything over 170.89. It's really semis that's still holding up. The Qs and ES and SPY just consolidating at the highs. And NVDA is a big part of that. So space for a daily higher low over 170.89, and we really care about this guy over here. Again, bigger picture. I think if you're being patient, waiting for more drawdown, I think over here is really where you want to be waiting and get good value on a backtest of this structure sitting at the highs of all of this demand here. I think that's going to be would likely offer better value. But if you're a short-term momentum trader, you can just be playing right off of this guy, just like for the SPY, the ES, the NQ, whatever. It was all the same idea, right? It was just looking for a backtest of this area of local daily demand. This is the equivalent structure in NVDA. So did we set that up, or did we only do that big zone? I guess we only did that big one, huh? Anyway, that's it for NVDA. Bigger picture, I still care about it over here. In the short term, if you want to make tape plays off of this guy, I don't hate that either. Bitcoin, so Bitcoin, very notable, right? To hold the all-time high, it's barely any break under the prior all-time high, I should say. And then get back over this breakdown. So this breakdown now under this low has been negated. At this point now, the daily no change level is 115.756. These sellers don't negate this most recent breakout on the 7th without getting back under 115.756. I think this is pretty notable too. As of right now, they did not touch down on it, right? So this is I guess like a 4-hour higher low probably. And you initially you backtested it, but here is a failure to get down there. That's quite notable. But at the same time, they're also failing so far to get back up to the point of control of this all-time high supply. They need to get back over 118018 in order to affirm this supply as demand. Affirming this supply as demand keeps them positioned well for a go at new highs. All right, and I think if you do happen to flip this back into demand, the next objective should be the yearly R1 again. It's pretty much where the buyers pop and dropped initially. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin's just kind of taking a breather here because, you look at the dominance chart and it's, making a lower low here. But if the dominance chart's making a lower low and Bitcoin is just trading sideways, honestly, that's not bad at all for the space overall, right? Give the alts a little bit of an opportunity to go for a run here. And then if that capital flows back into Bitcoin, then, you pretty much have like a, crypto cycle occurring, right? So that's what we want to see, that healthy rotation. And that's really it. Space for a daily higher low, anything over 112.622.14 going to be good for that daily higher low. Ethereum, just ripping here as well. It's getting to the point, I should say, where, I think looking for a backtest of this area of demand is starting to be pretty enticing, where just something along these lines, right? And this can be an ad for the situation over here. I know we barely came into the trade zone, so you probably only have one fill, but even if you did just get that one fill, you're still looking at 100% move from that one fill. So something like this, if you're looking to add to the trade or add back, particularly if you've taken your profits on the way up, something along these lines I think is pretty appropriate. Again, it's just that momentum style trade, looking for this area of local demand to hold, because this is the consolidation of this move higher. And so if these sellers can't take out this structure, then the buyers are going to try their best to try to make their way back up to where? The all-time high supply. All right, and I got this guy marked up over here because it's where these sellers have taken their stand many times in the past. And now you've finally broken over these two highs over here. It's the first time in, let's see, 2024. So it's been over a year since we've been seeing higher prices relative to this double top over here. This is quite notable. So I'm thinking at this point now, again, very reasonable, right? If you look for the retracement play in here, they should be trying to get back up to this guy, which is the actual all-time high supply. So it's okay R. Obviously not as good as down here, but still pretty good R. And a very reasonable play for a potential higher low or a lower level X follow through over 3354.56. I think that was pretty much a weekly higher low that's been set now. It kind of looks like an ascending triangle setting up here, right? Kind of this flat resistance here and higher lows. But anyway, I'm not much of a pattern guy. I mean, not in that sense, at least. CCJ. So for CCJ, I would still just wait for back here, right? This is essentially just a back test of this big old structure over here. So this was the prior all-time high, right? So this zone covers the prior all-time high. It also covers the gateway structure, this guy, into all of this local demand, this much larger area of demand. This would just be for an ad for down here. Obviously, you know, if you're still managing that position, you're doing quite well. That being said, it is initially a rejection from this all-time high supply. I honestly, I doubt that there's any excess here, so I really wouldn't consider this high secure either. Excess just meaning like you know, again, there's nobody willing to buy anymore. You should see a taper there. And it just doesn't look like that's much taper at all. It might be, but I kind of doubt it. We'd have to pull up a profile chart and just see if there's any single prints there. I don't really want to do that right now, especially because it's like a, you know, it's best looked at in a lengthy portrait mode, and the stream's not set up for that. I mean, the recording is not set up for that. This is potentially a head and shoulders, right? As long as this supply is being problematic for these buyers, then this is potentially a head and shoulders here. If this head and shoulders does confirm, then we're probably looking for a backtest of this area. Okay, so I still think this is a pretty reasonable place to be looking for trade. Okay, so moving on to trade review. So for trade review, oh right, forgot about that whole thing. You can't see the notes over this guy right now. All right, so I'll just copy it over again. Last week, you know, put the mic in the best place, right, nearly directly in my mouth. But then some folks were saying, you know, where's your face? And I think one person went as far as to say, I'm not allowed to hide my face, which is kind of Orwellian, I guess. So there's my face. My face is right there. I don't really have too many pictures of myself, but I think that's me. There's my grandma over there. That's my wife. So not only do you have my face, you have, you know, the faces of my loved ones as well. So hopefully this appeases the people who come here to look at my face and not listen to the information. All right, so let's get into it here. My eyes are up here, by the way. There. All right, so 8-4. I gotta copy this over here. So here we go. Oops, I gotta be on the what? What is the rut? The rut. This is just a stop out day. So for 8-4 here. What was I doing here? 8-4. I just sold the move under the open, if I'm not mistaken. So that's this guy over here. So again, we'll just bring that up. Yeah, I just sold the pass back under the open after failure to tag the daily no change level. So that's just this, right? On the daily chart, we were over here. And we rolled back down under the open after missing this test. So the initial drive was higher. You missed 216.91, and then you rolled back down under the open. So I was thinking, okay, if we're going to roll back down under the open after that, where is it? After failing to get that to touch the daily no change level, then these sellers are probably going to try to at least come down to over here. So I just set it up like this and sold it. It was a very late entry. I don't know. I think maybe liquidity was bad. I don't know. Either way, I thought I had a much better entry. But yeah, no, it was not. So I just gave it enough wiggle room to get roughly 1.5 R. I was just looking for it. I was looking for it way above, honestly, 2182.5. But the reason why I was looking for it at the target at 182.5 was, again, just because that's the most recent breakout point, right? So if these sellers mean business, they should try to get back under here to negate this breakout. It's also roughly these lows, right? But I didn't get to either, so whatever. Just to stop out, next day, let's see. Next day, the first trade was this guy for NQ. Oops, let's switch to NQ here. That was 8-5. So for 8-5, I just bought the pass back over the open. Just a typo here. Pass back over the open on the 5th because it was a it was gap, I think, right? Let's see, the 5th here. Yeah, it was a big old gap up, and I did talk about in the morning rundown for the futures room that, you know, I don't love this gap because it was a pretty big gap, and it was a big gap into supply. So I only really wanted to take it if the setup was cheap, and it was pretty cheap right off the jump. But it was also a super fast stop out. So I bought this pass back over. Hang on, let me just bring the references in. 8-5. Is it the 5th? Yeah, the 5th. Okay, so the first trade, you can't see it because it was just a super fast stop out over here. And it was just, I bought this pass back over the open. The initial move was a little bit lower. I bought the pass back over the open. It rolled back over. I stopped it out. And then, however, like, you have to be prepared to keep willing. Like, if you're looking to play with momentum on the day time frame, then you want a few things, right? Ideally, you'll have the daily demand being affirmed, right? So that actually wasn't the case here, right? We weren't holding over this area of local daily demand because the open was under 566.06. So I didn't actually have everything in my favor, but I still wanted to play for the potential of a gap and go day. So, right, like one of these days or this day, I think we captured this day or this day, we captured this day. So I was looking for a similar play like that. They can be super asymmetrical and great setups, and the stop out, you know, it was obviously a failed trade off the open, but whatever. The stop was stupid cheap, so no problem. And then the next trade was the was that here or here? No, that should be here. 36. Okay, yeah. So that's this. Buying this pass back over. Hang on a second here. Buying this pass back over the overnight low. The overnight low is marked up over here. And it's also roughly the regular trading hours high. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I saw that the rut was also showing us a lot of relative strength. And like, unless it's a dash to trash kind of situation, I just didn't really see why there would be any reason for the rut to see some relative strength. So I figure, you know, we're probably looking at some bullish rotation, right? If the NQ is weak and the rut is strong, that probably is like, you know, XLV, XLF, some of the smaller sectors showing us some strength. So once that retraces, then, you know, it wouldn't be unreasonable to see some consolidation back into, some rotation back into the Qs. So I figure, all right, and it was cheap. It was dirt cheap. So that's it. I flipped out at the local range. So I chopped it up at the high of the local range, and then I took some more out at the open. And then I stopped out the rest over here, but that's still pretty decent trade. Over here is where we stop out over here. And then on the same session, a little bit later, I think this is after I ate, I forget. So at 10:28, I'm saying, so 10:28 is over here. At this point now, the sellers have, you know, driven us back down under the regular trading hours high, making a good amount of space for a potential lower high. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm open to a lower high play, right? If it's a lower high on a pass back under the Depop, if it's cheap, then, you know, I'm open to that. So that sets up over here, very cheap Depop play, looking for a lower high. I just sold that, and I was looking for follow through on the 15-minute lower high, which was really this, right? So I didn't take this setup over here because the risk was just too high, right? Over here, I saw this. This was potentially going to be a 15-minute lower high. I guess I could have used the development value area low, but I guess I had already kind of, you know, decided I think Depop play is appropriate. Honestly, the deval play would have been fine too, but whatever. Either way, I see this. It's not good R. It's a lot of risk, 31 points, so I pass on that. But then I see this guy. This was dirt cheap. 11 points risk just to get to the development value area low is 3R. So I took that one, chop it up at the deval, and then I stopped the rest. And so, you know, just a couple of base hits for the day, but I mean, these base hits really added up quickly, so, you know, that's no problem, especially, you know, when it's the Qs, right? You chop this up, take off half your position, you book, you know, 76 points or so, and then you stop out the rest for 20, you book 50 points on that. That's still, you know, 1,000 bucks you're taking home. That's not bad. Same dealio over here, right? Chop, and then stop out the rest. That's still a goodie. And then I was thinking, all right, I'm open to another cheap setup of the rejection from the value area low. So that's over here, or for 23421, as the typo, it should be 241.25. Why? Because, well, 241.25 is essentially this. Let me just sync this globally. It's already synced up. It's this guy. All right, 23241. Where'd it go? That's here, right? So this is where we played that open. We stop it out. We played again off the overnight low, the regular trading hours high. Then the sellers drill all the way down here. We look for this lower high play. That one doesn't see follow through. So I'm thinking, all right, well, where should these sellers defend? They should try to defend against the value area low, right? The value area low of the prior session, or the low of this end of the day structure from the prior session, because the goal for the buyers today would be to affirm this guy as demand by holding over it. They failed to do that, and so now what would the sellers try to do? They should try to defend against this structure. So you do get a pop and drop here at the value area low, and then you get another pop and drop here at the 241.25, but I just wasn't paying attention, so I didn't get either of them. I just concluded that because I just, I think it's very helpful to think about the trade, going ahead, right? Like just like okay, I'm interested in this, right? This is at 10:30, I call it out an hour beforehand. It just helps to kind of not outsource, I guess kind of outsource out, like just do all your planning beforehand so that you're not making any decisions like right there in the moment. It's just very helpful for trading, especially for not like over trading, right? If you already know exactly what you're trying to get done in the future, then you just wait for that, right? And you don't have to like wonder, should I do this? Should I do that? If you're ever in a position where you're thinking, should I do this right now? It's probably not ideal. All right, and that's all that I got done on the 5th. It was a pretty solid day, despite nothing like crazy. I'm telling you, these bases, particularly in the futures, can really add up. Okay, so then finally for the not finally, but for ES here, let's see, for the ES on the, wait, what day is this? 8/6. We need this 8/6. We gotta hide these date time frame references here. For 8/6, what do we get done here? We eyeing a 340 test for ES if cheap. Okay, so hold on. Let me set up the context here. So on the whoops. On the 6th, okay, we're looking for a sell-off 6340. Why 6340? Because 6340 is this guy over here. That's here. So again, very similar sentiment, right? Where I'm thinking, okay, well, if these sellers are going to press the issue, just like they did in the prior day, they should defend this structure, right? So this was the structure that they couldn't hold over here. They the sellers made a move back under it, defended it. So if they're going to press the issue today, they should try to defend it again. So I was thinking, all right, let me look for that potential play. And again, that's on the 6th over here. So that's just like this. I saw the move back under 6340, chopped it up at the open, took out more at the developing value area low, I believe, right? That's pretty much it. That's, again, like if you've been watching these videos, the trades are almost always, they're very similar. They always rhyme, right? Like I'm always looking for a failure at a key level. I'm looking for that to be affirmed by the diva and the depoc and the deval, right? So if these buyers are going to fail at 6340, what's their next objective? They should try to get to the depoc. They should try to get to the diva. They should really try to get to the open, but it's pretty much the same level in this situation. So chop it above the open, left it enough wiggle room for 2R, that's a typo, and then looking for deval for more. I get that deval exit. Get the deval exit, and then I stop the rest on this move higher. Again, just base hits, but again, these are adding up well. And then finally, oh right, I have whatever, that doesn't matter. I guess we can talk about it. Nah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just, I think it's helpful, join our community, check it out in the link description below. We had a member who, she asked me in the pre-market, like how might you go about ALAB gap up and run? So she's looking for the potential of a gap and go kind of a day. And so I just give her this context, right? The long story short, it's just the idea is, all right, well, big gaps tend to be gap and holds, right? Because people are digesting that move, but that's more likely when there's a big block of supply overhead. But this one was in blue sky. So I was thinking, I'm letting her know you can just measure it out beforehand, right? Like you set it up, the open, the overnight high, and then give it a little bit of wiggle room, for acceptable R. Ideally, the stop is based off of some kind of structure in the overnight session, and then go from there. And she did execute this trade from 166 to 174. So that's like a quick, like 5% move or something like that. Pretty sweet. That's on this day. That's on this big gap. So like this is a tough play for a lot of people, like they see a big gap up and they don't know how to play it, right? Because it's, again, it can very likely be a gap and hold kind of a day, and it kind of was, right? This was the 6. Wait, what? Oh yeah, okay. And it kind of was, right? It's a gap and hold kind of a day over here. Kind of just gaps up and then trades sideways, but she was able to get it from 66 to 74. So just a really quick 5% flip. Pretty sweet, right? So anyway, we do this kind of thing all the time. So if you're interested, you know, trading with a group of folks, getting some feedback, bouncing ideas off each other. A lot of time we're just talking about dumb stuff, raccoons and cats and RVs and like fiberglass and stuff that I don't understand regarding like electrical engineering. You know, check it out. If you're into any of that stuff, it's oftentimes just like nonsensical things, to be honest with you. But that's fun too, right? Because trading can be boring. So anyway, check it out. Links in the description below. All right. So the next day, 8-7. Oh wow, I was really active this week. 8-7. What did I do here? I bought the pass back open over the open, looking for the gap and go. So that's over here. No wonder I didn't get much backtesting done this week. It's just a lot of trading. All right, so that's over here, 8-7, and okay, so it's another gap, right? That's this day. It's not a big gap, but at this point now, I for the potential to squeeze all the folks in here. So I'm thinking, all right, let me take another stab at this gap up situation. Really, the fourth is the one that we should have been the most interested in. What happened on the fourth? I was selling RTY. What a dummy. Okay, so for the seventh, we're over here, and I'm thinking, all right, and this one, again, this is a situation where you call that trade out. You can measure this all out beforehand, right? So I'm measuring this all out, and I see this first candle print. I see how low it gets, and I have this marked up already. So I let everybody know, hey, listen, it's still 1.5R just to get to the overnight high right now. So that's like pretty reasonable. So I buy that, pass back over the open, throw my stop under here, chop it up at the overnight high, and then I just stop out. I was looking for more at the value area high of this session over here, 731 session from way back here. Why? Because what's happening here on this open, right, is that you're holding over this session's point of control. So if these buyers were able to hold over this session's point of control, this should be their next objective. And you can see how they stall here the next day when they finally do get there. That's pretty much it. David got a pretty nice trade over here as well. I just have that, just included that just because I think this was a goodie. And he made this stair step play at 949, and you know, David's very helpful fella, friendly guy. He's probably the friendliest guy out of all of us. I would say never really throws any shade to anyone. Just like pretty much what 50% of our energy is used on. Yeah, so he's good calling out his trades as well. Yeah, so this was just a stair step break here, 1 minute stair step, and I like this because I don't know if he was looking at this, but the 1 minute stair step was right off of this guy, right? So that play that he did was in here, and it was right off this point of control of this session. So honestly, I should have been prepared for that as well, and I just failed. It didn't get there, right? It doesn't get to our value high target, but it is better R. I have it marked up over here. Buying that stair step break, stop under here, it's pretty much 2R to get to there, so it was a much better trade than the one that I took. I should have been prepared for that, a deval play if incomplete fill, especially because there was confluence with that virgin point of control, but I just for whatever reason failed to do it, so kudos to David. And then stop out the rest. I assume. I don't think he would have taken all that damage. Pretty sure he mentioned it somewhere, I just didn't include it. And then finally on the 8th here, on the 8th, I think it's just another base hit. On the 8th here, no, this was just a stop. No, it was a base hit. So I had the morning stream, so I didn't do anything in here, although there were some pretty nice Deepak plays, I think, for a 15-minute higher low. I believe this one. This one was pretty nice too, very cheap, got right to the regular trading hours high, but I missed that. I just ended the stream, I went to go eat. So I made a comment about like, that's a bummer. Yeah, I say it over here. Okay, that's a bummer. I missed that setup. At 11:07-ish or something like that. So that's over here. It's already passed. But then it does it again, right? You get another setup at the Deepak to the regular trading hours high. The R was still fine. I didn't size up appropriately for this because I was doing the math very quickly. But either way, still good R. Little base hit. Chop it up at the regular trading hours high. Stop out the rest. And then that was it. So a lot of base hits. throughout the week, and they honestly added up to be a quite, pretty solid week. So that is it, my friends. Appreciate y'all tuning in. If you got anything out of this, we would very much appreciate a like and subscribe. That'd be great. Helps us out a lot. Costs you nothing. By all means, keep commenting about all the things that you dislike. The mic could be a better microphone, or position better, or not covering my face, or covering my face more. I don't know, whatever. Let me know your opinions. Happy to hear them. I do appreciate all the folks who are, willing to put themselves out there and engage in discourse. Very often it does give me some food for thought, so I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for sharing some of your time and energy with me. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you all next time. Farewell.